Hey guys, Golden927 here, doing a video about the most recent ban list, which released last Wednesday and came into effect on the 29th of August, so this past Monday. So we're going to do a quick little video about it. I wanted to let time pass before I made a video about it because I did not want to make an in-the-moment video. So let's talk about it for a little bit. So first on the list to be banned is the Perform Pal Monkey Board. Previously was limited. So this particular card was good for the Pendulum deck. Reason being is you can act as basically like a one-card scale is what everyone was calling it. It was really good for the deck. Was it overpowered? I don't think so. I think this card could have stayed at 1, which is where it currently was before this most recent ban list. But they decided to completely ban it and do away with it. So that's the first card on the list that got hit. Next, Kaiser Coliseum was limited. Well, not limited, I'm sorry, it was completely banned. So this card is good for Bujin players who now no longer have this. It's a floodgate, which basically prevents your opponent from controlling more monsters than you do, which is a little disappointing to see this card get banned. I think it was a little unnecessary, but it happened anyways. But there's not really much you can do about it. Kaiser Coliseum as well as Monkey Board were the only two cards to get completely banned on the list. Next is the semi-limited list. You had Seer, Mellibranch of the Burning Abyss. This card is good for recycling your Burning Abyss monsters. This card was previously semi-limited, but now is limited to 1. I think it will slow down the Burning Abyss deck and maybe have it lose a little consistency, but do I think that Burning Abyss and PK Fire is definitely still a thing? The answer would be yes. I think the deck is still very playable, despite Konami deciding that they're going to slow it down and make some slight changes and limit the deck. Still a very playable deck. I think that Burning Abyss is still going to be a factor. I think I'll continue to see this deck on a weekly basis when I go to my tournaments. Next on the list to be limited, Aether the Heavenly Monarch. It was at 3 after the release of the structure deck from Monarchs. This card debuted in that particular deck, and this card is really an excellent card. It really is the lifeblood of the Monarch deck along with Pantheism, but this card getting limited to 1, it does hinder the deck quite a bit. Does it make the deck unplayable? I don't think so. I think that Monarchs are still going to be a thing. I think that what this is going to do is make Monarch players have to choose wisely the cards that they substitute in for Aether, and I still think that some of the other Monarchs can take her place, maybe not to the same power or the same extent, but I think that they will still be usable. And next card to get semi-limited, this one actually affected me, Cosmo Dark Destroyer. Cosmo Dark Destroyer I do love. It's a really good card, and so a lot of people thought that this card was, a huge problem with the Cosmo deck because it destroys a monster when it's summoned. It's untargetable. But this getting limited to 1, it's going to slow down some of the power in the Cosmo deck, but I think the Cosmo deck is still going to be very playable as well, along with some of the other decks that took hits like Monarchs. Still going to be playable. There is Dark Planet. There is Eclipser. We still have options, Cosmo players. And also I think this does kind of help balance out the game a little bit, which is completely fine. So Dark Destroyer got limited to 1, which I think is more than fair. Next card to get semi-limited, I'm sorry, not semi-limited, but limited, was going to be Kieran, Mad Spectre Unicorn. I know that not a lot of people are a fan of this card. It is an annoying card if you are facing it, but if you're playing it, I bet you love this card. But Kieran, he is untargetable, can't be destroyed by your opponent's effect, and has the ability to send cards back to your opponent's hand, along with a pendulum monster that you control goes back to your hand. So still a really good card. He's limited to 1, which I think is very fair. I don't think he needed to be completely banned. I think 1 is very fair for him. So I think that was a good move by Konami. Still giving Magic Specters and Pendulum players the option to still at least play him and not be overpowered. Alright guys, the next card on the list to make the limited list was going to be Beatrice, Lady of the Eternal. This card really helped Burning Abyss to speed up and to become a little bit stronger of a deck. Once you get Beatrice on the field, Burning Abyss starts to become a little bit harder to handle. So this card being limited to 1 is definitely going to, put some shackles on Burning Abyss. It's going to kind of tame the deck a little bit, but I still think that Burning Abyss is going to be an excellent deck to play, still an option in the meta. She's really good for helping to make the deck more consistent. It is a blow to Burning Abyss, but if you're a Burning Abyss or PK Fire player, I wouldn't be discouraged by this at all. Keep playing that deck. Next card on the list that was semi-limited on the list is Emergency Teleport. Emergency Teleport has been limited down to 1 now, and I think that was supposed to be a blow to Cosmo. So Emergency Teleport was excellent because as a Cosmo player, you could special summon like your Tin Can or your Farm Girl during either your turn, your opponent's turn, battle phase, main phase. Didn't really matter because you were able to get out that Psychic type monster. So being limited to 1 is definitely going to slow down some of the huge plays in the deck, but it's also crippling to like the Super Quantum players or any of the other decks that do have Psychic type monsters, because they are trying to balance out Cosmos. They're hurting other decks in the process with this move. Am I okay with it? I think it is fair, yes. But the only thing is kind of like I was just stating, it's going to hinder some of the other Psychic-based decks. Where Cosmo, hitting this, I think leaving it at 2 would have been fine, but, down to 1, it is what it is. Alright, next on the limited list, Pantheism of the Monarchs. Now, this one is going to be no surprise. A lot of people were calling for Pantheism to be banned. I don't think it needed to be banned at all. It's a good draw engine card for the Monarchs. So this one allows them to draw 2 cards by sending a Monarch card to the deck, to the graveyard, and then also they can reveal 3 Monarch spell cards or trap cards from their deck, and then your opponent adds one of them to their hand. So it's a really good card. I think that limiting it to 1 was fair. They could have even done 2, in my opinion, just so then they weren't hurting Monarchs too much. But I think it's better than completely banning the card. I think that limiting it or semi-limiting it is fair. Having it at 1, that complete limit, will hurt them a little bit. But, I mean, Aether can, search for this card. So, Pantheism is now down to 1. Another blow to the Monarch players. Next card is going to be Pendulum Call. Pendulum Call was previously unlimited. It was an excellent card for Pendulum Magician players, which I was building Pendulum Magicians, and when I heard that this card was being limited to 1, going from 3 to 1, it discouraged me at first. I was not going to continue making the deck, but what Pendulum Call does is you discard a card from your hand, and then you can add 2 Pendulum monsters with 2 different names from your deck, and essentially you would get the 1 scale and the 8 scale Magicians from the Master of Pendulum Structure deck and use those as the scales. So them limiting this to 1 is a blow to Pendulums very, very hard. Probably one of the hardest blows along with Monkey Board on the ban list. So I'm still going to build the deck. It's not going to be as strong as I wanted it to be. I'm not going to invest any more money in it. So I might do like a casual deck profile of this deck, because it's not going to be the competitive deck that I wanted it to be, just because of this particular card being limited to 1. So it really did hurt the Pendulum deck a lot, and I really think that Pendulums might have taken the biggest blow out of everyone on the list. I could see why some people would want this card limited or potentially banned, but I don't really think it's that big of a problem in my opinion. So this card has been limited to 1. Next card on the list is the Monarch Stormforth. Alright, so with the Monarch Stormforth was one of those cards that is not specific to Monarchs, but it works very, very well with it. This card did get hit mainly because of Monarchs being able to tribute their opponent's monsters, but it's a card that I do like a lot because it's got the effects of, I believe the card is Soul Exchange, where you tribute your opponent's monster. But Soul Exchange, you can't declare any attacks or have a battle phase. This one will actually let you have your battle phase, which is really nice. And Stormforth, along with, I forget which card it is, but the Monarchs do have a card that allows you to tribute during your opponent's turn. So this card is a really nice card. I've splashed it in other decks before. This is going to definitely slow down the Monarchs, which it does kind of suck that this card is getting limited, because I think you could use it in other decks, but I could understand why they are limiting it. It's getting limited for good reason. Next card is Max C. This one isn't getting limited to 1. This one is getting limited to 2. So Max C, it makes sense. I can understand why Konami is doing this, because this card is an insane draw engine. A lot of decks nowadays focus on special summoning. There's not very many normal summons that are performed in this game that would benefit you. There's tons of special summons that go on in this game. And Max C allows you to draw every time that your opponent does special summon. So it's a really good card. Limited to 2, I understand. I'm not mad at it. I can see why they're doing it. Do I think it's a bad move? No, not at all. Will Max C still get a lot of play? Yes, absolutely. The card is still expensive even after the announcement of the ban list. It's still not getting any cheaper. So Max C to 2, very understandable. I get it. I completely understand why they did that. Next, I'm going to probably cruise through these ones fairly quickly. Thunder King Ryo is an excellent card. It prevents you from being able to add cards to your hand from your deck. It's basically like a mistake, but in monster form. Level 4 monster, 1900 attack, really good card. Wind-Up Magician went from being limited to semi-limited, so that'll give wind-ups a little bit more freedom to create a more competitive deck. Thousand Eyes Restrict did go from being limited from the last ban list to being unlimited, and I think the reason being is they discovered that Thousand Eyes Restrict at 1, 2, or 3 isn't going to see a whole lot of play. It's not going to be meta-defining. Next card, Allure of Darkness, is now off of the semi-limited list and goes from 2 to 3, which is excellent for dark decks, because you're going to be able to special summon, I'm sorry, not special summon, but to draw even more. It's basically almost like a free pot of greed for anyone that's running a dark deck. Next, Gold Sarcophagus being moved from 1 to 3 is really good. I think that, along with Allure of Darkness, is really going to be excellent for Cosmo players. Simply because Cosmo Town and Tin Can didn't get hit. So Cosmo Town, you could pitch one of your monsters to the banish zone and then just use Cosmo Town to add it back to hand. So I like the move of going from 1 to 3. I'm actually going to start running it in Cosmo again. I had it in Cosmo once a long time ago. So Gold Sarcophagus to 3, I think, is really good for Cosmo. Just really good in general. I mean, it's a really good card. It thins out the deck. Sure, it's a little slow, but in Cosmo, it's very quick. It's a free search. Guys, I think that the ban list was a pretty fair list. I think that Konami did a good job with making sure that Monarchs, Burning Abyss, Pendulums, and Cosmo were still playable. And then it also makes room for a little bit more competition, having like the Metal Foe, Yang Zings, and other decks being an option, you know, aside from the current format that we've been having. So I think the list is fair. I think that Blue Eyes is going to shine even more, so be on the lookout for that deck. I think it's a good list. You know, there's nothing really to complain about. I just think that maybe the banning of Kaiser Coliseum was a little uncalled for, but other than that, very good list. Let me know what you guys are planning to run and what you guys are planning to do with the current format now that the ban list is out. And so far, since the new ban list, I've not dueled since Monday against anyone with my Cosmo deck or anything that has been affected by the ban list. I think Cosmo was the biggest one, but I think Cosmo's gained a little bit, even though they took some losses, and I really think that the other decks are still going to be very playable, and I look forward to seeing what happens this format. I think that I'm going to still play Cosmo frequently, but I'm going to experiment with other decks. I'm going to start taking other decks that I've not maybe displayed on the channel, or decks that I've showed on the channel and that I've made updates for, and take those to the tournament and see how we do. So I think that this changes things for the better. I think that limiting Pantheism, Stormforth, and Aether might make some of my other decks that aren't Cosmo a little bit easier to play against Monarchs. And I think that this list is going to be fair for everyone. A lot of people have cried and whined and moaned and everything about the ban list, and I think it's pretty fair. I mean, that might not be a popular opinion. If you guys disagree with me, you have that right. And if you do disagree with me, tell me why you disagree with me. But I think that this list is good for everyone. Post down in the comments what you guys are going to be playing, what you think was the best thing about the ban list, what you think the worst decision about the ban list is. Let me hear your opinions. I want to know what you guys think. And until next time, be sure to like, subscribe, and interact with me so then I can know what you guys want to see next. Until next time, this is Golden Knight 27, and I will see you later.